people to the wonders and riches that the world contains, and maintain your firm hand lest they stray.
Before we start, I'm going to get a spoiler out of the way. Before I say another word, I'm going to tell you which wonder is the most valuable one of them all, so you can go ahead and skip the rest of the video. The most important wonder is the first one you manage to get. Okay, that's a generalization, but it's often true. If you get the right wonder for your leader and your civ, then you can start your snowballing from the very early turns. Now, not every wonder is ideal for the beginning of the game, no matter who you're playing as. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. But just in case you're not in the know, everything I'm about to say here does not apply to Isabella. We are, after all, just living in Isabella's world. She has a special relationship with natural wonders. But it's not just leaders and civs that determine whether a wonder is any good to you. If you have to settle in a location with no fresh water and it's right next to a wonder that supplies happiness, then that wonder is automatically useful. If you're dying of thirst and you get the Bermuda Triangle, all its science and culture isn't going to save you. And some of this is down to timing. Some wonders are perfect for the game's start, and others are better at some point before you get to the mid-game. After that point, natural wonders tend to have less of an impact, and sometimes they're even in the way. And pretty much all of them have been claimed by that point, so you have to weigh the struggle to get a wonder from somebody and if that's worth it in the big picture of your plans. And the elephant in the room here is that it's not like you get to strategize which wonder you'll get. You can only get whatever natural wonder the game drops near you. The strategizing comes after the amazing stroke of luck. I'm just here to tell you how lucky you might be. Rather than do a tier list of natural wonders, I'm going to talk about each of the wonders in just alphabetical order, about whether or not they're better for early game, late early game, or the early mid game, to help you decide whether a shiny new wonder you've spotted is worth going out of your way for. The first wonder up is the Bermuda Triangle. Now that gets you +2 science and +2 culture. And in the fine print, as Isabella might note, you have the +1 science on coastal terrain in this settlement. So that's a pretty good buff for science, and that can help you really at any point in the game. The culture is also a nice little boost. Now, the thing is, early game though, what you're really looking for is two things: food and production. And depending on where you settle, maybe some happiness. Now, this wonder isn't really going to address those needs. It is handy, it's always good to get science building up, but this isn't going to actually give you the boost that you're particularly looking for at the beginning. So this is more of a later early game boost, maybe even more so than a mid game boost. You want to have this, sometime after you're a little more established. As for the Grand Canyon, there's +2 culture, +4 happiness. And in the fine print, we have +2 science on flat terrain in this settlement. Now, again, culture, science, and happiness, that particular combination. I don't think this is the one you want to find right next to you unless you're settling someplace that doesn't have fresh water, in which case that happiness could be a big help. Again, science and culture, valuable, but not immediately. You really want to grow. And so food and production are still the most two important items. Again, then, you want this late in the early game or early in the mid game, if that makes any sense. But not right away. This is, if you have to have a wonder, this is not the one you want right away. Take it if you can get it, but it's not your preference. The Great Barrier Reef brings you +2 food, +2 happiness, +2 science. Again, science. Useful, but not immediately. The food is helpful, though, and a little happiness boost. And then you get +2 science on adjacent marine terrain. Awesome. Awesome once you're further into the game. Again, not at the very beginning, but this is a little better because you get a bit of a food boost and still a little bit of a happiness boost. Probably the third most welcome thing to have at the beginning of the game is the happiness. So, again, a little later in the early game, and then maybe maybe even early in the mid game. But if you get it, like I said, the +2 food is decent. It's just not as good as some other wonders might be for you. In the case of Gullfoss, we have +6 food, and then in the fine print, +1 culture and production to adjacent rural tiles, and it grants fresh water. So, in a sense, if you are trying to build somewhere initially without fresh water, you get your +5 happiness as well as the +6 food because this grants you fresh water. So that's decent, very decent. And this is one you would love to have in the early game. Sure, you'd like production too, but my philosophy is in the first several turns, food trumps production at the very, very beginning. So this might be the one you want most at the beginning. It's giving you a couple of the things you need right away. So Gullfoss, keep that in mind. Now, with Horiguago, and I mispronounced that, I'm sure, about 3 different ways, you get +2 culture and +4 food, in addition to, in the fine print, +2 happiness on adjacent quarters. Okay, well, you see adjacent quarters and you go, well, that's for later on in the game. And the culture doesn't help you immediately either, but that +4 food is not bad. That's a good boost at the beginning. It's not my first pick for a wonder to wake up next to at the start of the game, but it's not my last pick either. It's somewhere in between, and I would welcome this at the beginning of the game. That's for sure. Iguazu Falls is another interesting case here. We get +2 happiness, +4 food. Not bad boosts at the beginning of the game. In the fine print, we see we get +2 production instead of happiness on the previous wonder on adjacent quarters. Okay, so that we can push that off a little bit, but it also grants fresh water. Useful at the beginning of the game, unless you've settled at fresh water, in which case, it's, well, redundant. But still, +2 happiness, +4 food. A wonder I would welcome at the beginning of the game, even if it wasn't my very first choice. Machu Picchu, +4 production, +2 culture. That production, very useful at the beginning of the game, and the culture later on. So this is one of those in-betweeners as well. But the +4 production, I would take that, just like I would take +4 food. And then you get +1 happiness in the fine print to all rough and mountainous terrain in this settlement. Well, it depends on where you settle, how useful this is going to be. But you just don't shy away from +4 production, no matter what. So I would take this at the beginning, even if it has stuff that'll come in handy later in the game. Mount Everest gives +2 culture, +2 happiness, +2 influence. And it reveals all mountains on this continent upon discovery. Well, that's kind of a nice little bonus. Now, I like this one in particular because of that +2 influence. Now, it's not food, it's not production, there's only a couple of happiness here. It's not a beginning of the game kind of wonder that you want to get, but boy, do I want it to be my second wonder because of that +2 influence. But only if you're into playing heavy influence games. If you're into all domination and conquest, this is not going to be as useful a wonder. So the type of game you're playing matters too when it comes to which wonder you'd like to get. Mount Fuji offers +2 gold, +2 culture, +2 happiness, and there's no fine print here. Now, the gold is useful anytime in the game, obviously. The culture, useful later on, and the happiness is useful at any point, just like the gold. The problem is there's no food, there's no production. It's not the very first wonder I want to see. So I would say later on in the game, slightly later on, because like I said, the gold is nothing to sneeze at, and you want time for that to accumulate. So a little past the early game would be ideal for Mount Fuji. With Mount Kilimanjaro, you have +2 production, +4 happiness. This would be fine in the early game. A little extra happiness definitely helps, and that +2 production boost is good. Now, is it in my top 3 for beginning of the game? No. Is it in my top 5? Maybe. The production helps and the happiness helps. There's nothing extraneous here. This is good, and if you got it, I would keep it. My impression of the Redwood Forest is that a lot of players really like it. It offers you +2 food, +2 happiness, +2 production. Three things that you all need at the beginning of the game. And you get +1 science and +1 culture to all vegetated terrain in the settlement. Stuff you need a little later in the game. So it's kind of a grab bag. It has a little of everything. And yeah, I mean, this might be in my top 3 or 4 wonders that I would love to have at the beginning of the game. It gives you a little bit of everything you absolutely need. Thera gives you +2 happiness and +4 culture. Now, the happiness is good. The culture comes in very handy later in the game. So I would say the late early game, the early mid game, maybe the late early game, if that makes sense. And, it's a volcano. Uh, so, not my favorite wonder to start with, not by a long shot. In fact, I don't even know if the +4 culture is worth it at times. I would say it's my least favorite natural wonder, at least so far in the game. Torres del Paine can be a very powerful wonder. You get a base +2 food and +4 happiness, so that's good at the beginning no matter what. That's decent. And then you get +1 food and +1 production on tundra tiles in this settlement. And it's more likely to appear in tundra. So right away, this can just be an overpowering, if polar natural wonder. So very handy if you don't mind starting in tundra. I'll admit that alongside Thera, Luru is maybe the wonder I'm least excited about getting. Now I feel bad about that because it gives you +6 happiness. You gotta like that, right? And you also get +2 culture on desert terrain in the settlement. Well, still, it's good, but it's not great. It's maybe okay in the late early game. I think by the time you get to the early mid game, it's probably not that useful anymore. So, really, a very specific period of time when it might do you some good. The Valley of Flowers not only looks kind of pretty, but it gives you +2 food, +2 culture, +2 happiness. A bit of a grab bag again, which I kind of like. The food and the happiness in particular, good for the early game. And if I'm hammering the early game, it's because that's when a lot of these wonders are going to make the most difference for you. The sooner you get them, the better. And that +2 culture is okay. The +2 happiness is great again. And then you get the +10 land trade range from this settlement, and that's all in the fine print. That's very handy too, but again, more for the later early game, if that makes sense. It's not the first one I want to see, but I would like to see it before the end of the Age of Antiquity, for example. Then it would be very handy. Viren is a slightly more complicated wonder, but it's still one of my very favorites for having early on because of that +4 food and +2 production. That's essential stuff at the beginning, so this is one of the top three for me. Additionally, it gives you +1 culture and +1 happiness per age for every time a natural disaster has provided yields in your empire. Bonus resets upon new age. So great, it adds up. I wouldn't want to have to keep track of that. I'd need a big piece of paper. But still, a lot of stuff comes out of this. I think this is one of the best wonders in the game. In terms of just visual appeal, I think this is my favorite wonder in the game. And I like grab bags, and it gives you +2 production, +2 science, and +2 happiness, in addition to +2 culture on rural tiles in the settlement. So a little bit of everything, some production at the beginning, some happiness at the beginning, again, two things you need at the beginning. So not bad. I think you could probably get by without it at the very beginning, but you definitely want to have it in the late mid game. Or late mid game? No, late early game, right. I think this would be very handy at that point. And if you get it at the beginning, great. It's going to pay off eventually for you anyway. Zhang Jiaji gives you +2 happiness, +4 production, and right away that +4 production jumps out as being very useful at the beginning of the game. And then in the fine print, you can see we have +2 culture on rough terrain in the settlement. So something that'll be more benefit to you later in the game. Now, is this one I want to see at the very beginning? Yes, the happiness helps too, and the culture will come in handy later. That +4 production, though, is really significant, and you want to have this at the beginning if you can at all help it. So there you have it. Machu Picchu would be in my top five, along with the Redwood Forest, and this is for the beginning of the game, right? What do you need at the very beginning? And Iguazu Falls, I think, also would be in the top five. And then I would definitely add Gulfoss. It's all food at the beginning, but that's great. And then also Veerman. With the +4 food and +2 production, the two things you need most. Ultimately, the natural wonders come down to luck, and good luck in early game can turn into a white elephant in the late game. You can turn to other cities, though, not burdened by the mountain in your backyard. Now, I'm not saying natural wonders are to be avoided. Hell no. The happiness boost you get from them cannot be discounted, especially in the early game. But our enthusiasm for them has to be measured. They're like winning a megaton lottery ticket, and we know how that can go for some people. You still have to grow your population and your production, and use these boosts wisely. Is a natural wonder worth taking somebody's city for? Maybe. Does taking it require you change your whole game plan? Then it might not be worth it. If you start near one, run with it. It can be a great starting place, and then other cities will take over with more powerful production later in the game. Don't be Isabella chasing wonders over the horizon, unless you are Isabella. If you're Isabella, then be Isabella. At the same time, I want to thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard or what you saw, please drop a like or a subscribe on the video. And I'm Civilized Raccoon. I will see you next time.